What would make this an especially meaningful conversation for you today?
I am aiming pretty high on the list of schools I'm looking at. So getting some advice on what I can do to set myself apart as well as getting a high LSAT score would be really, really beneficial for me. But aside from that, I do have a couple of questions about the LSAT and what I can do. One of my biggest struggles right now is timing. I've gotten to the point where I'm getting questions, especially in the logic games, consistently not missing any. It's just getting them done in time.
Okay, so do you notice certain trends in particular game types, ordering games, grouping games?
I think the thing that takes the most time for me is making the inferences and making sure that I'm making them correctly. That's
Okay.
the thing that I'm struggling the most with.
All right, not all games have a ton of inferences up front. So I think part of it comes down to having a rhythm or a sense of which games will be worth taking the time to do those inferences up front, which ones aren't. Now, Sam, how many games have you done overall?
I am on the last day of your logics game section for the first 3 weeks, I want to say, of the prep course.
Okay, so you've probably done around close to 40 games.
Hmm.
Okay, that's a good starting point to build a foundation, which is simply getting a basic familiarity with the different game types. But
Hmm.
there are nearly 400 released LSAT logic games. So you've
Hmm.
actually barely just scratched the surface.
Awesome.
So what that means is you've got to go out and do a whole bunch of more games to
Yeah.
better solidify your understanding and start to see the patterns more.
Hmm.
That's the biggest advice I would give you, honestly. You want to improve on games, just do a whole lot of them.
Okay.
How many
Absolutely.
exams do you have?
I have a lot online. And then for paper, I have a couple of the books that they've released.
Good. So if you've got a couple books, that means you've probably got somewhere around 120 in print on paper. And then
Right.
the others, you could just print out. Or if
Hmm.
you want to simulate digital, keep them on the screen on a tablet or a computer, do your work to the side on the scratch paper. But I think you just need to do a whole lot more.
Awesome. Let's see. What other questions do I have? We covered that one. Let's see. Other than logic games, the section that I struggle with the most is actually logical reasoning. I find myself as a business student struggling with relating and being able to fully understand and grasp the philosophical questions or like the art-based questions. What can I do to kind of help that outside of learning the structural part of logical reasoning?
Yeah, sure. I mean, some of those topics are really hard to relate to. I get where you're coming from on that. A couple things you could do. One is just find the conclusion specifically. I know that's a structure related thing, but
Mhm.
just for yourself, just to make it a little bit easier to trim the fat off of the stimulus,
Mhm.
focus on that one thing, just the conclusion. Obviously, when there's indicator words, it's easier. When there are no indicator words, it's harder. And
Mhm.
that's really where the practice is going to have to come in. So you could see which part is supporting the other part.
Okay.
If you could walk away with only one thing, what would it be? Now, somewhat related to this, aside from these topic questions, is just abstract language in general,
Mhm.
which is also hard to relate to. So, as an exercise for questions involving abstract language, especially in the answer choices, you could actually go and look up what all of those specific words mean because they're technical, they're abstract, they're kind of they are philosophical in a certain sense,
Mhm.
but people often just see them and they move on or gloss over it. But in reality, it's going to come up again. Just look up all those definitions or at least Google those phrases to see what they actually mean.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Um, Aside from that, I feel like I have a pretty good base and I'm set up pretty well for success with your course. It's been super helpful and I've been noticing a lot of gains um, and big leaps and strides with that. So it's nice to see that the work is paying off. I am going to visit Northwestern for just a tour this month. What can I do to set myself apart, and what kind of questions should I be expecting from them versus what I should ask them myself?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in terms of questions from them, they do interviews, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would expect anything about your background, specifically anything listed on your resume, anything you covered in your personal statement, and then finally, anything that relates to your reasons for wanting to go to law school in general, or why Northwestern specifically. So those are
Mm-hmm.
obviously pretty basic questions, but you want to have answers ready. So take some time to think those over, write them down, talk them out with somebody. I would recommend, if you have a friend or a family member do a mock interview with you, just running through a list of maybe 5, 10 questions that you could expect they would reasonably ask. I don't think they're likely to throw you any curveballs, but
Okay.
just be ready for the basics. And
Awesome.
then what you could do to set yourself apart, I think you want to come to them with some questions as well. And if they're an alum or they work at the school, if they're an alum, you might want to ask them why they chose Northwestern specifically, what they think sets Northwestern apart. So kind of like flipping the script a little bit and interviewing them about why they chose it, getting them to kind of defend their school in a certain way, not in an antagonistic sense, but more simply try to get them to convince you why you should go there.
Awesome. Okay. Let's see. The only other question I had is my school schedule is a little funky. I'm graduating a semester early, so everything for the LSAT and applying for colleges and everything like that is a little bit thrown off right now. So the first time I was going to plan on taking the LSAT was in January. However, I know that's like the last test time that most colleges will take. So I know a lot of people are trying to increase their score. Would you recommend waiting until February or March for me to take it for my first time instead?
It doesn't really matter. If you're talking about the idea that like January test takers are different from February test takers, it doesn't matter. All tests are equated. LSAC factors all of that into account. And so it'll be canceled out. I
Okay.
wouldn't take one or over the other for that reason. I do recommend, of course, taking it earlier so that either
Mhm.
way, January, February, whenever you're ready, so that way you can always retake it if you need to. If you want to
Mhm.
retake it in the summer or retake it in the fall.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Sure. What
Um,
else is on your mind?
let me think. Those are all the questions I had written out. Um, let's see. I guess out trying to think of a good question.
Yeah, sure. No, it's just, I just want honest questions, whatever really is on your mind. As you've been working through the course, what would you say are some of the challenges you've been facing or insights you've been gaining? What's your experience been like?
Honestly, the biggest challenge is trying to find time. I'm in my last semester of my junior year right now as a human resource major. I'm at the University of Nebraska Lincoln, and that's been taking up a lot of my time. A lot of courses that I didn't expect that would be so difficult and so time consuming. So being able to try to find a balance between putting in enough study time for LSAT, since that is such a big investment for my future, but also trying to maintain a good GPA because that is a part of my application as well. That's been something I've been struggling with, but I've been getting through it. But also trying not to get burned out. It has been something I've been struggling with too.
Are you taking days off?
Yeah, I am trying to take days off. They're few and far between, but I've been trying to.
Well, that's good. At least you're taking some days off, and your test date is not just around the corner.
Hmm.
You've got several months. If you take it in February, you've got what, like 4 months
Right.
until then. And that's just the first time you'll be taking it. You could retake it down the
Hmm.
line if you want to. There's no rush on this.
Hmm.
So you could also make more use of school breaks. Like you're going to obviously have winter break coming up
Hmm.
where you presumably won't have any academic obligations. You could focus more on just the LSAT then too.
Yes, absolutely. I'm looking forward to having a time where I don't have to worry about getting my finance quizzes done or anything like that, and being able to just solely focus on LSAT. But I have found, funnily enough, that LSAT and like the logical thinking that I'm doing for that has helped a lot with my school and how
No
I have
kidding.
to do that. So that's
How
pretty awesome.
so?
I'm in a supply chain class, and I have to do just the way that the problems are set up. It's very, you have to separate things out and be able to think long term to find optimal solutions for the problems we're given, and going through logic games and trying to find out all of these different answers for all of these different things. And the way that you have to think through it is just really similar to the way that my optimal solution class for supply chain is working out.
Oh, wow. That's really funny. So it's kind of like you're manipulating variables and
Yeah,
making
exactly.
diagrams and things of that nature. Wow. So those who say logic games have no real world application should talk to you about supply chains.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll deal with 6, 7 constraints, 5 or 6 variables, and trying to find the optimal solutions for those is what that mainly what that class is about. So it can't escape it.
That's so funny. So maybe that was actually the inspiration for logic games. Who knows?
Yeah,
It sounds strangely similar.
I know.
Anyway, one thing that comes to mind, Sam, is that the fact that you said that you're graduating a semester early, like you're finishing this fall, right?
Not this fall, next fall, December of 2020 is when
December
I'm graduating.
2020. Okay. All right. Now I understand. Okay. So you just have a long timeline ahead of you. And I think that when you talk about your academic obligations now, on top of with the LSAT on top of that, I'd
Mhm.
say just slow the pace down. You could take the LSAT in the spring if you want,
Okay.
and then take a lighter course load this spring as well.
Mhm.
Especially since you have more time available. Like maybe could you take fewer credits in the spring?
I'm actually almost done. I'm going to take 15 credit hours next semester, and then after that, I'll only have to take 13. So it's definitely going to slow down. Right now, I'm taking 16 and then working. So it's slowly starting to dwindle down, which will be nice.
Will you be working next semester as well?
Yeah, I'm assuming so, but I don't think it'll be as time consuming of a semester. The courses I'm taking now are a lot heavier, homework wise, at home work time, study time, very test based. So next semester hopefully won't be as much like that.
Good. I hope so as well. But that sounds like it'll bode well for you, that it'll be easier in the spring. You could do, a lot of folks like to take January or February because it's close enough to winter break
Mm-hmm.
that most of the studying could be done over winter break. Or you could really hit the books hard
Mm-hmm.
during winter break rather. And then you just take the LSAT. You don't focus too much on school those first couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then you obviously catch up later.
Right.
So that's one thing that could work well for you.
Yeah, I agree. I just wanted to be able to give myself plenty of time to retake it if I need to, since I am looking at, I want to get out of Nebraska for a little bit. So, really making sure and setting myself up for success for my future and making sure that I'm getting a good education. It all depends on my LSAT score. So, that's why I'm really trying to make sure I have enough time to retake it if I need to and be able to get a high enough score so I can have my share of colleges to pick from. So
Awesome, Sam. Yeah, that's the plan. So what would you say is the biggest insight you got from our call today?
really learning that I can slow down and I don't have to stress out so much about it. I think here having someone who understands it, I have one friend who's in law school right now, but outside of that, I don't really have a lot of people to talk to who know they try to understand, but they can't really relate. So having someone tell me that I can slow down and take my time with it, it's nice to have that reassurance.
Awesome. Great. I'm glad to help.
Absolutely. Yeah. The course has been just an absolute lifesaver.
Really glad to hear it. Please, I appreciate it. Please keep in touch and let me know if you need anything at all as you move forward.
Yeah, absolutely will do.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.